All right, welcome back to my stream. This is Sam Silver of Fathom Realty, 661 418 REAL 661 418 7325, or visit samsilver.net. This stream is sponsored by beyondlivingscv.com. And we are about to start our Zoom meeting this morning. And give me 1 second to log into our Zoom. Please stand by. Let's see. How is everyone doing this week? We had a great home and garden show in Central Park in Santa Clarita, and it was fantastic. We had so many different types of vendors there, and quite a few people came and joined, passed by my booth and said hi, and we're talking about Beyond Living. And a lot of people, including some of our politicians, were really happy to hear about what we're doing. So I'm excited to share with Keith and the rest of our team about the experience I had. So let's see, let's go into my portal, and we just got to go in and click on our Zoom link, and then we will be up and running. I hope everyone had a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Besides getting a little burnt, I had a fantastic time at the Home and Garden Show. But that's to be expected. I drink a lot of water, which, thank goodness, I brought a lot of water. And give me 1 second here. Trying to pat my head or rub my belly or chew gum and walk at the same time. So give me a quick second so I can get in here and we can start this meeting. It starts at 11. So let's see. I just need to find our link. Okay. Please leave in the comments what you did this weekend. And if you know anyone that has a house that's been on the market for a while, or maybe they inherited a house. Maybe there's a house for probate. Maybe there's something that use the house as a Beyond Living house and help people that are suffering from sex trafficking, people aging out of the foster system, homeless veterans. Maybe you know somebody that could use our services. Just visit beyondlivingscv.com, and I would love to talk to you more about it. Give me a second. Let me launch my meeting, and then we will be up and running. These are always great learning events. When Keith starts talking, it's like E.F. Hutton. Everyone listens. So here we go. Join with my computer
South
audio.
Florida's team is against the Leafs, so it's like I don't know what to do.
There we go.
Right? But it's like being a Cubs fan, though, man. Those people were fans for 100+ years, and they finally got one. So I'm going to stay with Toronto until they crush my heart again.
Hey, we all got to do stuff. I watch all the New York fans, all the Giants, all the every sport.
Try being a Cleveland fan.
Wow, people are still coming in. Look at this. We got a special We got a guest speaker that's going to jump in. Hey, Julie, great to see you again. It's been a while.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Let me see
I
if
can.
There you go.
Yeah, perfect. We're gonna in just a little bit. I'm gonna have Julie. Some of you have met her before. I'm gonna do some quick updates and so forth. But it's great to. We asked and Susanna actually, it was her idea. It's brilliant because Susanna's always good like that. Is Susanna on? Oh yeah, there she is. All right.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, she didn't make it. She just invites and say, show up in my place. I'm gonna skip it. No, she's there. But let me give some quick updates. Let me hit record and we'll go ahead and get started.
Recording in progress.
Hey everybody, it is a Monday. I don't know what it's with the 1st of May, right? I think we just crossed into May.
Happy May 1st.
Yeah, well, look at that. A few things before we jump into kind of our highlight topic today. We're going to talk a little bit about short-term rental, what's happening here in Vegas. I'm going to update some of you from Friday. Friday was officially, now I'll call it V-Day. And so we're going to get Julie's view on it, and I'll share some of the things that we found on our side. But okay, so first of all, Sam Silver, thanks so much, Sam. He might even have the flyer up behind him. Sam went out and did a home and garden show this past weekend. And was it Santa Clara? Do I have that? Or did I get the area wrong?
Santa Clarita, California. Just north
Santa Clarita. Okay, see, I'm reading on my phone. It's a C and it's a ta. Yeah, I don't know. It's so tiny. But Sam went out and he had a booth. And one of the things that he was sharing at that home and garden show was all about Beyond Living. And so I know you even shared a great story with me yesterday on the text. So I'm going to have you share with the group if you don't mind. Tell us how that went at that home garden show.
Absolutely. Well, it was pretty awesome. It was hot, so lots of water, lots of sunscreen. But I opened the booth as a nonprofit, and we're talking about Beyond Living. I borrowed Beyond Living, and I put a little spin on it. I put beyondlivingscv.com so that they knew I was local. And I've never ran into anyone that was going to age out of the foster system. And you talk about God reaching out and doing what he needs to do when you're there. This 19-year-old comes up to me and he says, "Oh, does this include foster kids?" And I just my mouth just dropped open. And I said, "Oh my God." And he says, "I'm 19 years old. And when I'm 21 years old, I'll be aging out of the foster system. And I could really use something like this." And I was just like, oh yeah, I have to share with Keith about this because in my whole life, I've never ran into anyone that was going to age out of the foster system. And I just happened to be at this home and garden show, and this young kid, this young good looking kid, looks like he's a basketball player, comes up and he has his foster family with him and his dog. And I realize that there is a serious purpose, and I'm going to be on a couple radio shows, maybe a couple streams in our local area, because I connected with a couple of our politicians about Beyond Living, and their eyes went open, and we just got to talk about what the regulations in our areas are. So thank you for allowing me to represent Beyond Living, and it was an incredible opportunity. If you have an opportunity, go into one of these shows, tell them you're a nonprofit, and what they do is they'll give you a better deal. The booth next to me was a realtor and had actually was pitching Beyond Living after I explained what it was. So I got a realtor next to me pitching Beyond Living and inviting me to their team meeting on Friday to talk about Beyond Living. So
wow,
this would just be amazing opportunity
That's
to
awesome.
get the word out.
Well, you know what, Sam, I got to tell you, that was so interesting. Your comment about them inviting you to come, pitch us to their organization, right? Because it goes back to what I was saying about Alan. Alan's been out there and people are invited to speak at RIA groups and everybody's hearing what he's doing. They're like, I want to be part of this. So I'm going to there's a couple things I want to touch on really quick. I don't want to forget about it. That you mentioned. First of all, you talked about the regulations. Regulations definitely are something that we need to be aware of. But the cool thing, the way we structured this is we structured it so they almost can't. There's a way to make this work in every area. They can't stop us, right? That's the cool part. So we've got 3 different ways, and it was is really cool. I don't think Alan, who was on with Alan? It was Vanessa. I don't know if anybody else was on with JB. Alan and I met with this gentleman. His name is JB, and he's out of Savannah, Georgia. And they have been doing a shared housing for some time. In Georgia, instituted some new rules inside Georgia that may pretty much make shared housing almost impossible to do out there. And he's in real estate. He's been in real estate for over 20 years. He's got all types of homes. He's done sober living. He's got restaurants. He's got a whole bunch of businesses. He does commercial real estate. He is plugged in, right? When he saw what we did, he said, this will work. He said, this will work here. He said, I love how you spun this to make this work, because he's always had that passion, and he was getting shut down by the local pieces. Now, I will tell you, this is where I believe, God does movements here, because a lot of these rules and laws that hold us back are not, I'll say it, they're not biblically based, meaning, it's about helping people. We see these things about churches. Somebody just sent that about this church, got, all these citations from the sheriff because they're helping the homeless and they're not authorized to do that. And they said, in my Bible, right, your goal is to do good for people. That's it. And that's kind of that piece. So I do believe there's going to become shifts and movements, and it's part of something even bigger than just Beyond Living. So first of all, I wanted to note that. Second of all, I was literally on a way somewhere. I was headed to a church event Saturday night, and I was at a light. I was starting to text you, Sam, to say, hey, how's it going? That was Saturday night. And then all of a sudden the light turned on. I got to come back to that night. I totally forgot to come back. And then you text me that thing. I said, oh man, I meant to reach out to ask how it was going. But thank you for sharing your story. And I think what's so cool about this is, and some of you heard this already, but there's a lot of new people that haven't heard this. But when we first launched Beyond Living, kids aging out of foster care was one of our primary things that pushed us into this space, right? We get our very first Beyond Living resident that came through a church as part of a dadding program. So we didn't know 100% his background. When Josephine was there. Josephine, Rachel, and I were there when he first came in, and he was talking about how badly he needed this. He started telling us his background story, and guess what? He aged out of foster care. He was homeless. And he was living at the park, and then his girlfriend's dad took him in for a little bit and said, you can't be living at the park. Josephine, you remember that? Like, we all had like chills and goosebumps on because that's what this is all about. It's about making that impact and making that difference. So I'm so glad you brought it there. Obviously, it's got a couple years, but the proof point is there that kids in that system are looking for something like this to get them to that next level. So we got to plan it. Let's build it out, because even though he's got 2 years, there's kids that are about to turn 21, right? So there's kids 2 years ahead of him that are about ready to be in that same spot. So we want to reach them. So a lot more to come on that. But
hey, do you still have that picture that you shared? You told us about it. I don't know if I've actually seen it, but I've definitely talked about it on my facilitation calls when I'm explaining Beyond Living to people. I talk about the girl who was on the street with the sign that said, the only thing I did wrong was turn 18. I think if we can get a hold of that picture, that should be like on every piece of literature we put out there.
Right? No, that's really good. I haven't actually seen that one, Michael. I think that was someone else. I love that. I'm going to go search that out.
All right.
Wow, that's
a
powerful.
good one. That's a good one.
Apparently, yeah, she was like 4 months out of foster care, and she was on the street.
That's powerful, Michael.
Yeah, it was so sad.
20% of those that age out of foster systems will end up homeless. 20%, 70% incarcerated within 2 years. So that's real. That's a real problem. So, and it's not going away. The foster care system's not disappearing. We haven't solved that whole issue of people not, ending up in that space where, kids end up needing homes. So as long as that foster care people are running through that system, there's always going to be that fallout on the other side. So we want to get ahead of it.
Some to get a home, right? My dad was a probation and parole officer, and he said that he would get a high uptick of his people that were on parole coming out of prison that in the fall in Canada, they would go break the law again because the winter was coming and they wanted a warm place to sleep for the
Right?
winter.
They'd rather be in jail. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's funny, but really sad because it's like, well, and you're warm.
Yeah. No, you kind of understand it in many degrees, in many ways, I should say. I didn't mean to use degrees. That happened to be a interesting word choice, given we're talking about temperatures. But nonetheless, so there's another piece of this, Sam, with realtors that also. So this weekend I went and spoke. I was at this church event, and people were asking about Beyond Living, and they were blown away by what we were doing, first of all, and then turned out to be a realtor there, and she loved our charity pickup event. So I'm going to share this with you guys really quick, so you know what we have available. Let me share my screen, and then we're going to jump into, in just a few minutes, into the short-term rental, what's happening here. But we've launched officially. I might have started mentioning it on Thursday, but it's officially live. I did because, Ray, you wanted to bring some stuff, and I gave you the link to use for your church, and we've got some flyers we'll create that'll be customized for a church if they want to promote it, etc. But we've got these squeeze cards, all right? I'm going to show you. This is side A. You guys see that all okay? I assume my screen is sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Side A is charity pickup event, May 24th to 27th. This is only in Vegas, by the way, just so you know. So it doesn't make sense if you're not in Vegas, but those in Vegas, during this event window, Beyond Living will pick up unwanted items for donation or junk removal for only $10 per item, and all proceeds go to support Beyond Living and other local nonprofits. So this little squeeze card that we can just hand out by the hundreds or thousands. We're going to order thousands of these, but great for realtors. I mentioned this event, and I had someone say, I'm a realtor. I need one of those. Give me some of those, because realtors are always finding needs for their clients to remove the stuff that doesn't get moved or get stuck in a house that they purchase, or they take over a estate sale, whatever it might be. So, and then the backside has items you may want to unload, and it gives some examples. And then, of course, it has the QR code. They can go right online, learn about it. They click on it, and they can place their order. So that's going to be, that is happening here in Las Vegas, again, May 24th to 27th. So all 4 days, massive ability. And our whole goal is just to get the word out about Beyond Living, that we can help people, create jobs for people. So if you are in Vegas, or even if you're not, you might know people in Vegas, we're going to have a version of this that you can post onto Facebook, and you can share it and say, hey, if you're in Vegas, you need some stuff removed to know people do, please share this. It's for a great cause. You save a lot of money on the junk removal thanks to our sponsors, because we're covering all the costs for this to get the word out and make a difference. Ray, I see your hand up.
Yeah, Keith, actually, I did go to that, what was that, on Friday to make sandwiches, and the guy that picked up the sandwiches for, I think it's for the Catholic worker, Las Vegas Catholic worker. He said they got like 300 people that come in usually that are homeless, and so I told him I'd get a hold of him about the Beyond Living program, but I was also telling him about the fundraiser and the church. There was only 2 ladies there that were helping out, but both of them said they wish they had known about the pickup service with like last month, because they had stuff. Both of them did that had people. And there was only 2 people there, and so I got an appointment.
And both of them had a need. That's the beauty of this.
But they needed it like last month.
They did, and that's okay. So we miss them now, but they know about it and can tell their friends. And the fact is, there's going to be other people just like them, right?
Well, yeah, and that's why I talked to them right after. I'll just take a minute. I got an appointment tomorrow morning at 10 with the pastor to see. They wouldn't do it in the office with the finance people, but she said I could meet with the pastor at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning to see if he wants to put this in the bulletin or something like that for upcoming events. So I don't know. Exactly. Just, do we have these available? These little flyers, or should I just bring them?
We do these little squeeze cards right now. Josephine has all of them. She's on the she's out by the northwest side, Summerlin area.
Yeah, that's where I live.
Yeah, you're out in that area. Maybe you guys coordinate and pick some up. She's got several hundred. I printed a bunch, but I'm headed out of town in the morning, so I don't have any. I give them all to her.
Okay, I can meet with her if she can meet with me, or pick them up from her sometime later. That's
awesome.
Sometime tonight. Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Sounds great. See, this is going to start spreading like wildfire, guys. I'm telling you, the needs for the junk removal, create the jobs for people, create awareness. And like you said, now the church is aware. Now they might have people that actually need the program. We'd love to put them in some homes and help them out. The second thing that I wanted to share, and then we'll shift our topic, get to the main topic, is we are rolling out, and I've got some brand new marketing stuff coming out for our Quick Share application that's available for all businesses. And we've, God made it very clear. This is the easiest thing that we believe we could have our Beyond Living program members learning how to build those landing pages. So we're going to be building out a whole bunch of landing pages for realtors, for mortgage professionals, businesses, accountants, doesn't matter, nonprofits, and using QuickShare to help them grow their business exponentially. So we've got this tagline. We're going to start some call campaigns. We want to give away free one simple strategy that will grow your business exponentially, guaranteed. How many guys would like to learn one simple strategy that you could execute that will grow your business exponentially, guaranteed? Guaranteed. And by the way, this is also will likely be the least costly marked sales tool that you've ever executed in your business. And so that's what we're putting together. And that right there is going to be the foundations of our Quick Share, because here's the thing. Businesses are investing so much money on advertising, Facebook, direct mail, billboards, all this other stuff. And the problem with that is every time you have to keep spending to keep getting, right? You have to keep spending to keep getting. If you want to grow exponentially, you've got to invest exponentially. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. You want to grow 10x, you got to put 10, well, actually, literally, it's not actually exponential. You put 10x in, you'll get 10x out. I'm talking about how do you invest a small amount and let that just grow exponentially for your growth. So that is what we've got coming. So you guys are going to see that here on, we've started working on it. I'm hoping over the next 2 weeks, that'll become live. We're also doing something else. We're going to make QuickShare to help grow QuickShare even faster, because it creates more jobs for our Beyond Living residents. We're going to add a little piece, and it's something that it was called Blue Mountain. You guys remember when emails first came out? There was a company called might have been Blue Mountain. Anyone remember? And they were this free email service. And then everybody at the bottom of their email, it's a get your free Blue whatever account. Anyone remember what that name was? Got any old schoolers in there? No, just me? All right. Well, back in the day, talking 20 years ago, when emails were just picking up and all these companies were growing, there was a company called Blue Something, and that's what they did. And they embedded it in the bottom of their email, get your free email account here, right? And so they just grew rapidly because they saw it. So what we're going to start doing is at the bottom of every Quick Share. So if you've got a company, let's say you're a realtor and you've got a Quick Share app, at the bottom of the Quick Share app, it's going to say, get your Quick Share app just like this, click here. Or click your Quick Share app just like this for your business, click here. And every person that goes and signs up for Quick Share from your own business, from your Quick Share app, you're going to get a part of the sign up fee and monthly for the rest ongoing. So your Quick Share could become free. Imagine if you could be growing exponentially for free. Sam, here's what I'm explaining to you. If you had 7 people that said, hey, I want to grow my business exponentially. I want people sharing all my stuff. If 7 of them sign up because you sent it to them, yours is free for the rest of your life. Think about that, being able to grow exponentially for free, right? You can't beat that, right? So we're going to make it super easy, super powerful. So more to come on that. You're going to see that happen in all the Quick Share apps in the next update that we do, which will happen in the next week or so. So I think that's pretty cool too, right? All right, so those are the updates I want to go to you. Now we can jump in. We should have everybody on now. We can jump into today's core topic, and I'm actually going to do a YouTube video on this too. I might do a real quick one. I'm going to do like a short to let people know. Here's my version of the short, and then I'll give a little bit of what I'm going to do on my breakdown. I'm actually going to create a whole series online on YouTube. You know how you can actually create playlists on YouTube and you string them together, because you guys know I could talk for an hour on this stuff easy, maybe 2 or 3 hours, but I'm going to break this into its little elements. But here's the short of what happened for those
Keith, two things, Keith. One, you're still screen sharing.
Oh, thank you.
And 2, just before we get off Beyond Living, I could not share in the chat the picture. I found it of that girl. I couldn't share it in the chat. I couldn't. It said that it was restricted by the administrator, so I sent it to your text. So
Oh,
you've
okay.
got it. If you want to show it to people, it's on your text, and then
On my text. Let me see if I got a text. I have no alerts. That's weird. Oh, but it did come in. I must have alerts turned off. Oh, this is really good, Michael. Oh my gosh. Hang on, everybody. I'm going to share this with you. Hold on. Let's see if you can see that.
Wow.
It says all I did was turn 18.
Wow.
Wow, is that powerful?
Wow.
That's powerful. Thank you, Michael. We are going to incorporate that.
beautiful girl. I'd like to, I'd like to figure out who she is. And
Right.
see if she's doing okay. And, it looks like she's in Chicago based on that picture. So, we should.
You might need permission to use
Nope,
that exact
nope,
picture,
nope,
right?
Nope,
No?
nope.
Oh,
Don't even
cool.
go there. It's on the public domain.
Oh, perfect.
So thank you, Michael, for sharing that. I want to incorporate that into our videos, what we're doing. I always love things like that. I'll probably put it even on our homepage. So that's great. That message hits it home right there. Like that's all that right there can say it in one simple picture.
Yep.
So thank you, Michael, for
You're welcome.
doing it before I jump into the main topic, because it's totally relevant to what we just went through. So here's the thing. I do YouTube shorts, so I can do things in 60 seconds, and you'll see me do this one in 60 seconds, roughly. But here it is. Basically, the end of last week, Las Vegas has decided to restrict housing for tourists coming into the area, and they've done so in collaboration with Airbnb. So it's going to be very disappointing for anybody that's coming into Vegas for weddings, funerals, sporting events, etc. that are not looking to hang out at casinos, traveling with families. The city of Vegas and its counterparts have basically said, we are not as interested in your business here. Now, it's unfortunate, and it's going to create an impact in the likely going to impact housing prices. So I'm going to do a whole breakdown on all the elements of what this means, but just want to share what's happened this past weekend. All right, so that's roughly going to be my 60-second YouTube short, give or take. I haven't fully fleshed it out, but I often don't. Sometimes I literally just do it one time and that's it. But it's to generate the interest and the awareness of what has happened here in Las Vegas. So I'm going to break this down a little further now that I can actually confirm what's happened, because I'm one of the 10,000 short-term rentals that have been impacted, if you will, here in Las Vegas. I've got several properties, and I began to say, well, I was waiting to see. I'm like, well, let's see if Airbnb really requires license things. Let me try to post them on some other platforms and see if Verbo went along with it too, and all this other stuff. And sure enough, actually, it's even more complicated than that, because I wrote Airbnb and they told me that my properties were going to be able to stay on the platform as long as I didn't make it for less than 30 days. And interestingly, in one account, we have multiple accounts with properties. And in one account, I think we have 4 properties and maybe 5. But for sure, one of them was completely off, would not even be on. Actually, I'll share with you what I found. 3 different, very unique circumstances all happening on Airbnb. One of them was still showing listed in the back end of Airbnb, and if I made it 30-day minimum, you could actually find it if you searched out more than 30 days in Las Vegas. So basically, everyone should know the background, but for anyone that's catching up as we go, Airbnb said starting April 28th, you're going to need to have a license number as part of your licensing in order to be on the platform, because of all the laws. And they weren't just, this is interesting, they weren't just restricting it to city of Las Vegas or unincorporated Las Vegas, where all this chaos really began, because city of Las Vegas, let me break this down. There's 4 parts of Las Vegas. Unincorporated Clark County, which makes up the core of where short-term rentals were actually residing, and there's a reason for that. Then you have city of Las Vegas, which is the proper city limits, which is not as big as most people think. If you look at the map, it's only a small portion. Their rules are extra restrictive, actually. You have to live in the house, and you've got to designate which room you'll be staying in while your guests are there, all right? So it's much more complicated in the city of Las Vegas, and you can't have more than 3 bedrooms and all this other stuff. So it's even more restrictive, which is part of the reason unincorporated, blah, blah, blah. Then you have the city of Henderson. For those that don't know, Henderson is a city just on the southern portion of Las Vegas. Has a lot more high-end homes. A lot of the wealthy live in there. There's some areas in there that are some of the most expensive real estate neighborhoods in the entire country, wealthiest, I should say, but driven heavily because I think her name is Beverly Walton. One of Sam Walton's kids or grandkids lives in there. That drives it up along with some other rich folks, Celine Dion, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, and then you have North Las Vegas, which many people are scared to live in, but it's really not that bad. It's got, I mean, it's like Vegas. Every area has good areas and bad areas, even Henderson, et cetera, right? So here's what's happened. City of Las Vegas, City of Las Vegas, Henderson, and North Las Vegas have licensed laws in place for some time. And they've enforced these laws when they could catch people. But it's never been an issue on Airbnb and Vrbo because you never had to put a license number on the platforms, which means if you're running these illegally or against the unconstitutional licensing laws, all right? So if you're going against the unconstitutional licensing laws, you could still run it on Airbnb because they weren't stopping you from being on their platforms. Then unincorporated Clark County comes in and says, hey, we're doing all this stuff and we're going to work and we're going to fine these platforms if they don't comply to our rules and put a license number. Obviously, there was an injunction. They weren't supposed to be able to implement this stuff. I don't even know where that stands because they're all implementing it anyway. So I went to see, will Airbnb really jump on or are they just threatening? Well, the reality is they did. They are requiring the license numbers. You cannot post and your properties will not run for less than 30 days on any of the platforms without a license number. I've tested it. I've proven it. I've seen it. Now, I will tell you this.
Booking.com too?
We did not test booking.com, but we started the process, but they have the same thing to get it on board right now. You have to have the license number to even get it up.
Because I've been 100% successful on booking.com because they're conveniently located in Amsterdam where, no U.S. law extends to Amsterdam.
Well, I know you can't post it on there. I don't know if you get on there, Michael, if they still enforce it on their. We could find it very easily though, because you could find properties and see if they've restricted their total counts in Las Vegas. But going back to this, okay. What happened? This is interesting. On one of the platforms, so I've got multiple accounts. On one of the accounts, I have at least 4 or 5 in the area. And it's a mixture of what's happening. One of them, as I mentioned, is showing up on 30-day. It's in unincorporated Clark County. And it's within 2,500 feet of a casino. So there's no way it's ever getting a licensing, right? So it was never going to get a license, but I can use that one for 30 days. There's another one on the same account in the city of North Las Vegas that won't show up at all, even on above 30 days. Thought that was very interesting. Then there's another one in the city of Las Vegas that actually shows as unlisted, won't even let it list. And then you go through the process to say, when you go through that process and it says you're required to have a license number, or if you click here, you can list it for as long as it's at least 30 days, right? So we go through that process and it will not let that property post. So we submitted to Airbnb and say, hey, I've got in writing that says I can list this over 30 days. So I don't know what their systems are doing. It makes absolutely no sense, but it's a hodgepodge. It really is. And I've got properties in all of them except Henderson. And I will tell you this, and I'm not scared to even bring this up on a recorded call. On another account, I have one in North Las Vegas and it still shows up as short-term rental. And I tried to get the permits a long time ago, but I wasn't in the distance requirement. So that one actually I'll never get a license for, but I'm still able to run it. So I don't know what their algorithms do to identify what accounts are they going to take the heavier restriction on or not, but I'm just telling you, it is real. I don't know if they haven't figured out all their pieces yet. I don't know if it's like once you have one in the unincorporated Clark County, now your whole account is flagged. Because remember, the one I just mentioned is in North Las Vegas, which means it's not in unincorporated. It's all on its own, just running that on its own. And it's kind of this, it's like it's the outcast right now. It's the only one that feels like it's never been impacted, So we're letting that just go. We're going to keep our mouth shut and pretend that we don't know anything about it. So, but again, it's not in unincorporated Clark County, which is where all this chaos happened. But it's interesting because it is real. So for anybody that tells you it's not real, I'm telling you right now, I can prove to you, I've been through it, I've seen it, I can point to the exact properties that it's happened and Airbnb has caved. So I'm planning a whole little dissection of this in the little 6 to 10 minute videos on why it's unconstitutional, why you're going to see housing prices drop massively, why it might impact tourism. And let's think about it. You either don't have a place to stay now, or you're going to see prices start to go up for housing if you want to stay in a house, because there's a limited supply. This is basic economics, guys. It's called supply and demand. Right? It's supply and demand. There's also another risk here that if you think about this, bed and breakfast have been around for centuries, right? This is not a new concept that people come in and stay with you, right? But all of a sudden, it's this massive problem. It's this massive issue, and we're creating all this challenge. And I saw something on the news. They did this big thing on the news that if you suspect your neighbor's running it illegally, here's a number you can call, and blah, blah, blah. And the ignorance of people, they're like, well, I don't even know who's staying in the house next door when they come in for that. Let's be honest. You think you know who your 30-day neighbor is? You think you know who your 90-day neighbor is? There's people that are hermits in their house for a year that you don't know who they are. And that's because they're the ones that go to the MGM and start firing at the top, or the Mandalay Bay, right? The whack jobs can live in long-term leases as well, guys. That's not changing the scenarios, right? Parties can happen in long term. So we've gone through this a million times, but that's how I'm breaking all this stuff down, because I just want to educate the society that we are letting our lawmakers drastically impact the natural economic flow of things. You're going to see prices change. And I want to call it out now. So when home prices stop dropping, if we end up with thousands of properties flooding the market in a market that's already slowing because there's too much supply, I want people to realize you can thank your legislators for that, because the casinos did not need any more people booking their hotels. They had a record-breaking year last year, record-breaking $14 billion. They don't need any more money, but gosh forbid, we want them to optimize when we have the Super Bowl and we have Formula One racing coming in and we have the baseball teams coming in, all that stuff, right? That's what this is about. And my bigger fear that I'm getting to is this. We let them control the short-term rental laws and start calling that as a business. So that's what makes this different. That is a smart argument. This is a business now, right? You're operating a business in a residential community. You're opening up two massive can of worms. Where do you draw the line from that? How many people work from home these days? How many people run a business out of their home as an accounting firm, et cetera? You want to start getting taxed or treated like a business and start being told you can't run a business out of your home because it's zoned residential. You need to go out and buy office space because the commercial industry is sinking right now. So how are we going to help them? We're going to deem no more at-home businesses. This is what you're opening up your potential for. Or how about this? We're talking rental real estate. Well, what makes 30 days of business but not 31 days? Is that not still a business? Are you not profiting from your home? So maybe we should make 30 days, this 90 days taxed as well. Well, why stop there? If you lease for a year, you're running a business. This is a business. You're making extra income, aren't you? Now we start taxing all rental properties, right? Well, that sounds smart from the lawmakers to make money, but you don't realize the economic impact that's going to do to drive up rents, because the minute people have to start paying taxes on their rents, they need to offset that by rates. So see where I'm going? The minute you start giving the dog a little piece of the treat, it wants the rest of the box, right? You know how they this is an awesome story I learned. Did anybody ever hear the story about how Eskimos hunt wolves? Anybody know this story? This is fascinating, and it is relevant. It's kind of gory. It's a little bit graphic, but check out what they do. They take a giant knife and they dip it in blood, and then they freeze it, and then they repeat this process several times. All right, how many guys have heard this before? I know Susanna's covering here. Sorry, but this is the truth. This is what they do. They do that several cycles. So you get this sharp knife that's loaded, just iced with blood, and so then they stick it upside down, coming out of the snow, and then the wolves come and they start licking because they can smell the blood, and they start licking it. Well, the frozenness of the sword or the knife numbs their tongue, and they keep licking and licking, but the smell of the blood keeps them licking until eventually they keep licking, and they start They cut their tongue and they still sense the blood. They don't realize they're actually licking their own blood until they bleed to death. You know, it's disgusting. But they create their own death. Does that make sense? Their hunger and appetite for their cravings is actually what gets them ends where they're at. And so that's the risk that we do when we, sorry, Suzanne, I'm all done now. That's what happens when you open the doors to give your politicians and political power without understanding the impacts on a bigger level. People that are not trained in economics, people that are not trained in the impacts it's going to have. And this is true not only for this, but it goes back to Beyond Living and the laws that they create about affordable housing, but then they shut down all the domes that people invested in to create affordable housing. Talk about talking out of both sides of your mouth. We need to change that. So we just have to be careful here, folks. By allowing our people that power, you get the CDC that shuts down America, takes the Supreme Court to come out and say, you don't have the power to do that. But we give them the power. We accept them as having that power, so they do it anyway. You guys follow what I'm saying? They're so good at distracting us in the media and propaganda that we can't see reality from their world, right? It's like The Matrix. Ever see the movie The Matrix? Everybody thinks they're living in this world, and everybody's really living in a pod. Right? That is basically describes most of where America's at today on so many levels. We got to break those chains. So with that said, I've got a lot more to come out of this, and you can tell I'm fired up about this topic. And I wish it wasn't this weekend. I got so many other things I got to get done. So that's why I'm only doing my 1-minute video, and then later I'm gonna do the whole series on the impacts that this is gonna have. But I want to get out there soon because I want to be able to point to it later and say, look, I told that before they ever launched this. And one last thing. They come up with money in affordable housing, and we're losing $45 million. That was their claim when we watched them speak, right? I already did the math, guys. I'm a statistician. I'm a math guy, all right? I ran the math. If we just charge a license fee monthly for a number of bedrooms in your home, we could actually get over $60 million of revenue from all the 10,000 short-term rentals. So we could solve the revenue issue. We can help people that want to come for families and for funerals and weddings that don't want to be casinos to have the travel experience they want, and still have money to help provide a bit more security to protect the neighborhoods, even beyond the short-term rentals. But they don't think like that. They're not economists. That was also my background. I had honors in economics in college. So yes, I kind of get economics. Doesn't mean I'm the best at it, but you might begin to recognize that you want people that have some sense of economic training and big impacts, instead of just people that have nothing better to do at their time and want to go political office because they're looking for power. And maybe some want change, and I appreciate that, and some don't mean to do bad, but then you've got to have the people, you got to have the advisors that can actually do something. And by the way, I don't mean to get political on this, but I will. It's part of the reason Donald Trump ran for president. He called it out in the 80s that if we can't get anyone that can fix this country, I'm going to go do it. And then he jumped in. And if you look at all the things he did successfully, it was unbelievable what he did. Got us the lowest unemployment rates in history. I mean, you can just go, because he's a business guy, all right? I agree. He is not a politician. I mean, he does not know how to respond to media and get the social and the public behind him. But man, he knows how to run a business and bring the economy to a good level that we need. So I did not mean to bring politics left, right into it, but the idea that you got to have people that understand the economics to protect your city. So with that said, she didn't think she was going to have to wait 40 minutes to speak, but Julie, thanks for joining us. We wanted to invite Julie in. Julie's somebody that I got introduced to through Susanna. We met end of last year sometime, and Julie actually teaches short-term rental training class. In fact, it's not just a class. She teaches around the country. She's got amazing courses around how to do short-term rental the right way, how to create great environments for it. In fact, I mentioned those 4 different cities. One of those was Henderson, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Julie. In the city of Henderson, they have to take your course to get licensed. Is that right?
Yes, and City of Las Vegas also required it.
Okay, so there's two cities, 2 areas right here in 2 cities in Vegas that require people to take her course as part of the licensing. So she knows what she's talking about. So we wanted to invite her on just to kind of hear her perspective. You have to agree with me at all, Julie, on what I'm sharing or saying. I'm comfortable in my opinion. I want people to have their own opinions, but I would love to get your take on what's happening, what you're seeing here, and maybe what you're seeing in other parts of the country as well. And is there a way that a course like yours could help create a more solid balance. I mean, that is, if you see the views I'm seeing, that I think what we're doing is completely wrong. We're missing the points. I think there's elements of these licensing that make sense, but it's not solving the overall issues of parties and overcrowding and other things that's part of every neighborhood, and they're missing that part of it. So anyway, I wanted to open the floor to you, Julie, to kind of have you share your perspective.
Thank you.
And let me ping you too.
I agree with you on a lot of this. I want to first say too, I was a foster mom too. I was on the foster care board. A lot of the kids came to my home, and I want to point out that some of the kids are opted out of the system even before they're aged out, which is terrible. Some of them are out at 15, 16, 17, and then, or the person themselves acting up. And if they've been in bad homes for a long time, we can't expect them to behave well until they are put into a good environment and given the tools to become self-sufficient.
I'm taking a mental note here based on that, Julie. It sounds like it would be awesome to have an intermediary mechanism where those that maybe do have the background of turmoil that makes it harder to adjust in a regular home, maybe an environment specifically designed to help them flourish, to break through that barrier, so then they can go to the next place and be successful there. Does that sound?
Yeah. They do better with the group homes. Most of them do, a group setting. But that's a whole nother issue. But I appreciate what you're doing because these kids do need help. Now, as far as short-term rental, it is chaos in Las Vegas, in New York, in Miami. Most of the big cities have taken bad advice, usually from the platforms, unfortunately. Airbnb is not our friend. Now, that doesn't mean some of my managers do not use Airbnb. You just have to know what you're getting into. In the Las Vegas area, I kept hearing during the legislative session where AB 363 was passed that the Resort Association got into bed with Airbnb. And I thought, what? Well, that is what happened. They negotiated with the resorts and threw the hosts under the bus. That's absolutely unacceptable. And right now I hear from resort owners who believe Airbnb is going to send reservations to the resorts. They say they are shutting down the home listings and they're going to send them to the new resort towers.
Because they need somewhere to go. So this is how they're going to protect their revenue. So I got this comment for a minute, Julie. That actually disappoints me because I had a hope. Here was my hope. And I'm actually still going to state it publicly on my rant, okay, on my YouTube channel, right? What my hope was this: Airbnb became profitable for the first time last year. And I was hoping that this 90% decline in homes will impact their revenue. And I still use them because I have to. I believe that they're an important part, just like I still use part of Facebook and I don't care for Facebook, but I don't use Microsoft. I've left them a long time ago, but I have respect for what they've done. But from Airbnb, don't have any respect for them from a host perspective. You said it. They don't care about the host. Michael's been complaining about this forever, but you're right. My hope, and I'm going to say this, I hope they lose 90% of their revenue and they learn their lesson that the hosts make the difference. Now, one last thing before I forget on this rant. I want, and I'm going to state it again publicly out there, I want to have a stick it to Airbnb day or week, sorry, not day, week or month or 2 weeks where no hosts make their properties available for Airbnb for at least 2 weeks. Let's shut their revenue down by 50% a month and show them that we have the control, Airbnb. Because now you've made me even more fired up about it. Fine, go to your hosts, go to your hotels, and let's see what happens when the word gets out that you don't really care about the host. Why should we support you? So go ahead. That's my plan. I plan to plan that. They
don't care about the guest either because the guest has made a reservation at a home. That is what they want. It's a whole different market than the resort market or the hotel market.
Absolutely.
And that's the challenge with Airbnb and with our legislators and public officials is they don't understand real estate, hospitality, and certainly short-term rental within both of those realms. And with short-term rental, we kind of are in both realms. Real estate is the core of short-term rental. But hospitality is the core of hosting. And if we don't understand hospitality, we are having the parties and we're disrupting the neighborhood and we're causing problems for the entire industry, but also for ourselves. So that's why it was the city of Las Vegas that asked me to write a course, because they said, Julie, your properties are doing great. You have 5-star reviews. You are full. Your average daily rate is higher than others, and you're code compliant. How do you do it? Well, we do it by implementing best practices within policies that make sense. And back then, Las Vegas had policies that made sense, but then they heard from Airbnb that they should do only home share because it's so much safer. No, it's not safer. It's more dangerous. In most cases, that's why insurance companies will usually not insure an STR rider on a home share property. However, they were thinking bed and breakfast in rather than the Airbnb model of B&B. Those are two different animals. And so they jumped into this because code enforcement wasn't ramped up, and they had a lot of party houses around certain public officials who got angry. So anger can make people make irrational decisions sometimes. Now, I think it's important to understand that we had societal changes, social changes, that created the boom for short-term rental. We also had the technology guys putting it out there. They have powerful SEO, so they are getting it out there. So people did jump into the Airbnb effect, even though these businesses have been around for decades. Our first short-term rental was opened in 1986. That's how long I've been doing it. So we've been here, we've been doing it well. Problem is, we had a lot of people jump in who didn't know enough to know that they didn't know enough about what they were doing. They expected passive income. If you're doing it right, there's nothing passive about it.
That's the truth.
Work.
Yep.
Yes, it's work. So what we need to do is learn how to capitalize on this social change. That takes education, it takes research. Now, disruptors are usually the first ones to jump into a social change, and they disrupt. They love the chaos of the change. Although what we've had happen here is it's crossed the line. It's kind of the wolf hunting now. Sorry, Susanna. we're talking about wolf hunting again. But at a point, it crosses the line into being something harmful and hurtful. And I think that's where the disruptors are right now. So what we need to do is stabilize. Social change is stabilized only by two things working together. One is a change in policy. In these big cities, they have not wanted to change their policies. They just want to say, we want them to go away. Well, it's not going to happen. Consumer demand will be filled by someone. Second is, we need the social or the policy to inspire the kind of behavior we want in our society. Now, the behavior they want is for us to not disrupt the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
For our guests to be paying taxes, just like the hotel guests. If they're lodging, they should be remitting taxes, just like anyone else. In order to do that, in most cases, you have to have a legal licensed business. So as you said, Keith, they're losing millions of dollars in tax revenue, millions of dollars of licenses that could be used for schools, for roads, for tourism promotion. All of these things that are good for the community. But when we talk to the county commissioners, for example, in the Las Vegas area, they say, we don't care. We really don't care about the money. We're rich. We've got a lot of money to work with. Well, I think as voters, we should be alarmed about that. When the last election, if all the people had not jumped on to the lawsuit and instead had jumped on to going after the campaigns, we would have made a lot more progress. We almost ousted Justin Jones, the county commissioner. He lost the election on the day of the election, but then miraculous, he got 2,000 mail-in votes. How did that happen? But if we had won that election by 10,000 votes, he wouldn't have been able to get those 2,000 mail-in votes.
Right.
The commissioners would have realized, they're going to come after us too. That's how the culinary union in the Las Vegas Valley has so much power. It's through their voting power.
Yeah.
What we need to do is concentrate on a couple of things right now. The commissioners have said, we're not going to change. We don't want short-term rentals. We're not going to change what we're doing. Well, then we need to change them. So in the next election, we need to go after a couple of the races and oust a few of them. Also in the legislature, it's unfortunate that we didn't do anything about AB 363 in this last legislative session. We tried, but the best we could do is to keep it from being rolled out into the rest of the state. We won that battle, but we weren't able to pull back on any of the other things. Now the lawsuit, I agree with everybody that this is not right. What is being done is ridiculous. It is far extending what it should be, but it's the lawsuit is a property rights lawsuit. It's not going to do anything for hosts, unfortunately. It's the injunction did nothing, and it was only a partial injunction. If it goes to the Supreme Court, it'll do nothing. It just gives the commissioners an excuse to not do anything because there's litigation going on.
Yeah.
But we've got a couple of things working for us. One is the A's. They want the A's and the other things. They found that sports tourism in the area is big. Now, in order to fill the seats in the stadium, they're not going to have enough local people just coming to the game. They need the people from out of town coming in and getting hotel rooms. On game nights, the 150,000 hotel rooms are going to be full. What's going to happen? Where are they going to stay? So if Las Vegas wants to be friendly to the team, they're going to have short-term rentals that are legally operating. Otherwise, everybody's going to open up a bedroom that night, and you're going to have shootings and stabbings and parties in the streets, and you're going to have problems because they won't be well run. So we need to get the A's to say, we want you to take care of our fans. So if you want us to come to Las Vegas, you need to do something about your short-term rental rules.
Yeah.
Will commissioners listen to that? Oh yeah, they'll listen to that. Will they listen to us? Not unless we are powerful voters. Now, in the 4 different areas that you mentioned, and you're right on that, we've got in this area, North Las Vegas, City of Las Vegas, unincorporated Clark County, and Henderson. Henderson's regulations are pretty good, but their 1,000-foot distance separation makes it almost impossible to find a home that can be short-term rental unless somebody loses a license. Unless we get them to slim up their regulations. But the code enforcement officer says, we're going to make them even tougher. We need to be working with Henderson officials saying, if you do, we're going to come after your election. This has gone too far.
Yep.
Clark County, the same thing. We need to be not getting people. If you hear somebody complain about a neighborhood party and that horrible short-term rental, or Airbnb, they'll call it, in that neighborhood, you need to say the problem isn't the short-term rental or the Airbnb as much as it is the commissioners who are not requiring them to be licensed, who are not requiring them to be code compliant. They need to be complaining about the governance. If they're complaining about the governance, then they're more likely to change it. City of Las Vegas, we need to say, you're not in compliance with AB 363. We need one of the council members to sponsor a bill that says that they'll lift the whole home rental ban. City of North Las Vegas needs to get their stuff together so that it doesn't take you 3 months to try to get a license. Then you're going in blind without knowing if you can be licensed or not. But their regulations are pretty reasonable if you can just get through all of the stages. But there are many other cities. Now, Susanna, you asked me if where would be a good place to apply for a license. Right now, the big cities have all done it wrong. I haven't found a big city that's doing it right now. But there are some smaller cities that are implementing best practices. So if you learn how to read the regulations and the zoning, look at the zoning maps, you're going to be so far ahead of the game because you can research properties better. and you can see what's available. If there are no regulations in place and you want to do a short-term rental, get in there, but know what you're doing. Be neighborhood friendly, get involved in the community, be somebody they love, get to know your legislators. So when there are some bad operators that move in, you can call up your legislator and say, or your public official and say, hey, I want to help you. And you will have a voice on what can be licensed. We've done that. That's how I've saved some of my businesses. Is I've been able to say, I've been good to the community. I've been code compliant within your regulations so far. Here's what you should put into place. Now, am I telling them, am I describing my property? Oh, yes. Yes, I am, because that is what.
If you look like this, that way you know you're safe, right? Exactly, right? Create the mold and try to have others fit into the mold. But I think your point, one of the most important things that you're stating here, and I think there's a hybrid of things that you described that is so powerful. First of all, I believe, and I'm not just doing this to promote your course because it doesn't do me one good or another, because I'm nowhere where I even need your course. But actually, here's what I think. So I believe. Well, I mean to get a license, like I'm running it out anyway. But my point is this. There are the media, because that's what the cities want, have created a fear inside the community. So that's how they get people behind them to support these ridiculous rules. If you had a course like yours and people understood that the regulation, that through the proper training, we can have a good environment, and we combine that with helping people understand what short-term rentals really about. And you can ask those of us that run short-term rental, the number of parties that we have on our plate is minimal in the grand scheme. And the amount of disruption we have is minimal to communities, right? I mean, we're getting, like I said, funerals and this and that. I mean, it's amazing the people we're serving, and the rest of America is not hearing that side of the story. Right. So we need them to have some compassion to the people that are using. By the way, anyone that says no short-term rentals in my neighborhood, in my opinion, should not be allowed to use any short-term rentals, right? They should be banned from the platforms, right? You can't say not my neighborhood, only where I want to go. But there's another piece of this, and that is this. Done the right way, there's an economic side of this that I know can be solved, that can generate more revenue than they ever imagined. If you're running a successful short-term rental, we run them. I don't mind paying $100 a month per bedroom as a license fee, because if you do it right, you're going to be able to have that be effective. And you know what? That's going to be better than any of the taxes or anything else you get anyway, because now you have guaranteed revenue. With that, you could create the systems to solve the bigger problem, because I can point to at least 2, and I'm saving and documented these cases, maybe 3 actually, where my guests have called us to call the cops on the neighbors that live there because they're disruptive. They're having parties. In fact, we've got one right here in the city of Las Vegas that is now currently not able to run, that we have it in writing through the Airbnb platforms, help reporting what we already knew about a drug house across the street. And you know how hard it is to get anybody to take action against that drug house? They don't do anything about that, but they're going to stop our short-term rental that has been nothing, not one single complaint or problem with any of our guests in that short-term rental. So the system is broken. So how can we create a hybrid place where you can have the proper structures for a good environment for neighborhoods, allow people that are tourists and traveling to have a better experience, and even utilize this business opportunity to create revenue to enhance our neighborhoods, to have a complaint system, not just for short-term rentals. There's loud noise. Well, if it's a short-term rental, we got a number for you. But if it's your tenant that lives there or a neighbor that owns their house, tough luck. Tough luck.
Yeah, and that's the point we need to make. We need to be advocating for quiet neighborhoods.
Yes.
And that would be, an owner cannot have a quinceañera at their home every weekend that they're hiring out just because they're the owner of the home. It disrupts the neighborhood. Yep. It's not always a short-term rental that disrupts the neighborhood, but what we've got to do is have the policies in place, and then we need to behave. Mm-hmm. And that's what we teach a lot in the course, is teaching people how to run their business, how to make their neighbors love them, how to make good revenue, higher income, so that you can pay the fees and be a part of your community. And so it is important for people to be educated. And whether it's this course or if you find another one, great, but make sure that you are constantly learning. Now, I will say we do have an online class that's always available. You go to strcertification.com. That's and then you can go to that website. Oops, it's a little light in there.
I think we got it on that one. Yep.
Yeah, if where we can type it in.
Yep,
Now,
I'm gonna add it to chat right now.
Yeah, into chat. But the other thing is we have this week, if you're in Las Vegas and you can open up a couple of days, this will be the last live class that I have time to do in the Las Vegas area for probably 6 months at least. It's going to be the 3rd and the 4th, and we have a special code which I'll type into that'll get you $50 off. That's because the Go Global people are hosting it off campus. And they negotiated a special code. Thank you for it's STR. It's strcertification.com. Good job. And then the code is GO today. Let me see if I can get it in there.
Go today code.
It's go.
Okay.
No, it's go. Whoops. I'm being a technology challenge. Now, I will point out too, you mentioned 30 days. That's an Airbnb rule.
Yeah, they differed. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, make sure that you look at the tax code, because that's kind of a tricky thing that's coming down the pike in the Las Vegas area. Because Airbnb says, oh, you can do it for 30 or less days on our platform. They think it's okay, but it needs to be 31 plus days for long-term rental. If you do less than that, you're going to get a $30,000 fine. So be really careful. In some places in Florida, as you mentioned, they made it 180 days as the taxable amount. So you could be, they could always widen that window, as you said, Keith. So we've got to be careful about the legislation. Also, in the legislature right now, there are, I like the, Julie, when are you running for county commission? I've been, and I told them, because I served in the legislature in years past and defeated a 28-year incumbent. So I know it can be done. But I told them, if my district will not be up for re-election for 3 cycles down the line, you get 2 more people in there, I'll think about it. Because we need some good representation and we don't have it right now on the county commission. So let's see, I can't type it in. So do GO2DAY. So that's the code.
Wait, what is it again? Go what?
It's all caps,
Yep.
GO2DAY in caps.
All right, just put that in the chat for anyone. If anyone is interested in the course there.
Yeah, and that's just for the 2-day course from May 3rd and 4th. You need to get registered quickly because seating is limited. And and then the online class is always available. Now, some cities are popping in education requirements right away, and some people aren't able to get into the class and get it done. So it's best to get your certification early. Everybody who's required education has allowed the class because it's the only one that's accredited. We went through the full academic accreditation review, and it's also been gone over with a fine-tooth comb by real estate divisions. That's because they want to make sure it's accurate and it isn't selling a product. It's just telling you the best practices. So education is what we can offer and help you with. But make sure that if you are doing a short-term rental and you have workers and people there, please have them behave. Don't allow the parties. There are ways of monitoring your houses that will allow you to shut down parties. Airbnb sent 3 groups to my houses kind of to get after me because I wouldn't let them buy me off. And they sent me a little text message. How are your best practices working? Well, we shut all 3 down within 1.5 hours. Then they tried to do bad reviews. We were able to get those removed. They tried to do bill backs. We got all of those overturned. So we won every battle because best practices work.
So that's really good. That's a really interesting side of it too, Julie, which you just brought up, which is the certification may not even necessarily be just so you can, meet the licensing requirements to get licensed in an area, but also I heard some great things there, how you can manage parties, because as we know, Airbnb is not always the best to work with when you have issues. They're kind of like, well, I don't know what to do, et cetera, et cetera. We've had cases where people were able to book, they're in our place and they're already in there, and then they come back and say, oh, by the way, their payment didn't go through. So it's up to you what you want to do. It's like, why is this my problem all of a sudden? You should be, for nothing else, if you let someone in my house or my property and you weren't able to get a payment, you should be on the hook for that.
Right. And we just need to make sure that we understand what's going on. Now, the new wave, there are over 15,000 illegal or unlicensed short-term rentals in Clark County. Though I think the lottery process will bring up about 500. No. So there's going to be a sea of unlicensed properties. Airbnb, they shut down some listings, but as one is shut down, they'll bring up another. They're getting over $500,000 a day in booking fees. Are they going to say, oh, make it go away? Let's make it go away. Now, with the question about booking.com, they aren't an accommodations facilitator yet. And that is the category in AB 363 to allow them to collect and remit taxes. And so they're not really looking at booking.com or Flipkey or a lot of these other booking sites. They're mainly looking at Airbnb and Vrbo. And so those are the ones that are mainly under the county's thumb. But as we know, Airbnb will shut down one listing and then start up a new one. Demand will be filled, and they want their booking fees.
Well, let me ask you, what do you mean when you say they'll start up another one? Because they're not allowing you to get a new listing posted on there without the license number.
They're allowing some people to do it.
That must be an insight thing. We've tried multiple times in multiple ways, and we get, even the ones we have, they're not even letting it. Some of them, as I mentioned, aren't even able to stay on even with 30-day plus. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's a glitch in their system, but yeah, it'll be interesting what they do. I mean,
I did some research right now. I looked it up on Airbnb in Las Vegas right now, and there's some that have licenses, the license number, but there's some that don't. And so like and actually a lot of listings have gone down, because if you go on Airbnb and you search for how many homes are available for properties that can accommodate maybe more than 6 people, so that typically are going to be your homes. I mean, it's down to like around 800 properties, and normally it would have said 1,000 plus.
Absolutely.
It's down. Now it's down to about 800. But we still see some with the license, but some don't have the license.
They're creative. That's their main site. The demand will be filled. They're finding ways of doing it. And I could tell you about all the backdoors they have.
I'll pay you for the backdoors. If you got a backdoor way to get it on Airbnb, that's where I'll invest the money. I'll tell you that. Honestly, no. I mean, here for us. Yeah, what's that?
There are so many other sources you can go to, and so many ways of marketing your property that you really don't need it. I have 3 properties where we don't use any hosting platforms. We don't have to. And I'm gaining most of my properties. We are now at about 70% direct booking. That is through marketing. And so if you learn how to market your property, and it isn't that hard, I think it's really fun.
Yeah. Well, we have some ideas on how to market that. So we've got this whole business called Pat Hop, et cetera. And here, I'll be honest with you, there's a part of me just out of the mere challenge of it. And that makes me want to do it. But I'll be honest, the problem is when you get caught or you get whatever, and you're not following the license laws, the fines are big, and the legal battle's huge. So for me personally, there's a part of me that says, you know what? I would love to prove and do it just like I did Facebook. Facebook shut us down a long time ago for something we didn't do. We hired someone offshore. Well, I don't know if they're offshore or not, but we hired someone externally to help us with Facebook. And then they came back and said, you did some illegal things. We're shutting your account down. We're like, I just hired somebody. I don't know what they did. And they wouldn't let us get it back. So I said, forget it. I'm going to show you how we could build a multi-million-dollar business without needing Facebook, so I can share it with all my entrepreneurs to say, you don't need Facebook. And it won. And I proved it, right? It was a ground to say, I don't need you for that, right? I almost want to do the same thing, but I'll be honest, I'm at a point where we have so much going with Beyond Living. I don't have the time, energy, or care enough, because I'll just say, look, I don't need to be in this space, or at least not even here in Vegas. I'll let them do their thing. And my point of what I want to do, Julie, to your point, is right on. I do want change in the legislation, right? Hang on a second. I got to mute everybody. I'm getting some background noise here. Okay. You can unmute, Julie, whenever you need. But I believe we need that change in the legislation, like you said, which is part of the reason I do want to get the video out there now to say, hey, when you see home prices drop because we're flooded with properties, you can thank your legislators for that. Because that way.
Great point, because the Nevada legislature right now has some ridiculous long-term rental bills in there, rent control. Increasing the eviction notice to 60 or 90 days rather than 30 days. They're layering these things on that will cause more problems for long-term rentals without thinking that if it's harder for me to control my long-term rental, what am I going to do? Am I going to sell my home? Or am I going to try to short-term rental it or 30 plus day it? It's the legislation is causing the problem right now. It's the policy that is worse than the operators or the disruptors.
Yes. Right? So let the market naturally work itself out. You're artificially impacting the market.
Yeah, I have sold some of my properties in areas where we had party operators all around us.
Yep.
It wasn't governed properly. I've sold properties when I gave away my Las Vegas license, my coveted license. I realized I was going to be having to charge 20% more than my competitors because code enforcement wasn't going to be shutting down the 45 people within the same building that were doing short-term rentals when I would be the only licensed person. Now, that's where business sense comes in, and we have to run this like a business and say, it doesn't make sense. But what I did is I took my money and invested in a city that I researched and found I could do reasonable regulations. And so I'm making more money there. Yeah. And that's what you need to learn is how to work within the regulations and be aware of them. Even if you're doing the operation that you're talking about and can do that, you need to know what the regulations are. So when code enforcement does come, you can say, no, here's the section that negates that.
That's exactly right. We have 3 outs on every way that we do when code enforcement comes. We have 3 different ways to keep ourselves protected from that. So and then I've got a backup plan for all of it. I got a 4th, which is the ace in the hole. But absolutely. But your point is there, and that's kind of what I want to do for the betterment of the community, not even for myself. I don't even care enough about short-term rental in Las Vegas. Like in general, I want to keep them. I like the model. I love helping people. We do good. But here's the thing. I want people to be educated in the economic position that nobody's going to teach them. That is this. If you start doing rent control, you start doing these things that make it harder for an investor, right? They're going to sell their property and go to an area that they can have less restrictions so they can manage this easier for themselves. That's simple. And the law of supply and demand says when there's less homes, prices are going to go up. And you're not going to have enough homes and you're going to create a housing crisis. This is basic economics. But people don't understand this, and no one's going to share those consumers because either no one knows to teach them or they don't want to teach them because they have their self-serving interest behind the covers that's happening. So that's my fear, and that's why I want to educate people now, because if we don't educate people, and then they're just going to make the laws of paper and go along with it because they don't know any better. So I at least want informed decisions, right? Informed decisions. And that goes back to, you want affordable housing. The last thing you want to do to create affordable housing is have a shortage of rental properties. It's real simple, right? You have a shortage of rental properties, you're not going to have affordable housing because it just doesn't work that way. Or you can't have high fines and fees to be able to, and this is part of the reason a lot of people end up with properties that aren't well maintained. You have to realize this too. If you want people to have good housing, they've got to have margin. You got to have margin to upkeep the home, to keep it in a good place. So like, instead of taxing, say you need to do X amount of upgrades on your property equivalent to the tax, have them reinvest into the home to create homes that don't become slumlords, right?
Incentivize them to become code compliant or compliant with the behavior that they want in the community.
That's right.
Another thing that I teach in the universities is emerging destinations. And post-COVID, almost every city is an emerging destination because we've had changes. But what we need to do is look at, tourism coming into the area and supporting it, but not choking the neighborhoods, not choking out the desire for people to want to live there. Some of these tourist places, you just don't want to live there, so you can't get any workers. So there needs to be a balance. And good policy will take that balance into consideration. We're not seeing that in a lot of legislators right now, legislature places. It's either hotels or developers are one of our biggest problems, or the conglomerate property managers are the biggest problems coming into the short-term rental industry right now, along with the policy, and they are powerful in the legislatures. So they're doing it. We were pleased to be able to kill a horrible bill in Utah this year. It was tough because the predominant party was supporting it. It was on the fast track. We got it killed.
That's awesome.
Yes, but it was sad because we weren't able to advocate for the really good legislation that didn't get out of Rules Committee because of all of the fight on the other. So we've got to pick our battles.
I was going to say, you got to pick your battles. Yep. So before we wrap up, I first of all, I want to remind everybody, Julie's got the course. I put it in the chat. It's not even about getting certified so you can get a license. There's a lot of great stuff on how to be a great successful short-term rental host. Learn some tips and strategies, how to create the experience that you want. For your guests, that's how you're going to get repeat business. And we have so much repeat business. There's some properties that, you don't even need the platforms. Totally get it. But obviously the more traffic you have, the more you can charge for your properties, etc. But either way, no matter how you get people to your homes, if you're going to run an unlicensed short-term rental in any area, you're at risk. You're at risk of it getting shut down, getting fined, and everything else. You've got to make a decision if it makes sense for your business model, right? And that's the bigger piece of it. So I loved everything you said. I mean, you've got a lot of experience in this space, a lot of wise things and wisdom to share with the group. I thought it was amazing. I love the fact that you're not only helping people realize, how to be more effective as a host, but also where are the emerging markets? Where should you be going? And how do you look at it differently? And all that's fantastic. Any last things you want to leave the group as we close off for today? And I really, again, thank you for your time here, but any last parting words that you think people should keep in the back of their mind as they pursue forward?
Well, I think there was a question down there for Michael. Where do you find those cities that don't have strict regulations? Well, what you need to do is learn how to read the regulations. And that's something we try to teach. We try to teach people how to fish rather than serving them a fish dinner. And because I have students in my degree program classes that will do a design. And so I'm looking at cities all the time. Because they will be in different cities. And so I read the different regulations and I can see which ones, pretty soon you'll be able to tell which ones are governing it well and which ones are not. And when you find one that is doing a good governance, get in there, find a property because that is the place where you're going to be able to run your business. Now, the other thing is when we're in an area where we're not sure if the regulations will change, or if you find that you're doing an unlawful property and you got into it not knowing what you were doing, the focus is different. And that's something that legislators and public officials don't realize. If your focus is trying to work under the wire and not get caught, you're not going to be focusing on profitability as much, on making a neighborhood friendly short-term rental, on taking care of your guests and getting those repeat bookings. So when you are in a situation where you're licensed and you're doing things according to the policies that are in place, you can really focus on profitability. And that's what it should be about, is your profitability and running a business that will create good memories for your guests. Now, right now we're in a chaotic area of short-term rental, and it can be very confusing, and you've got a lot of people giving bad information. I get sent articles all the time by so-called experts, and I start reading them, and I'm like, oh no, they're going to cost them about $60,000 in code fines if they follow these problems that or advice that they're giving. Make sure that you are listening to credible sources and that you're going by your gut too. If it sounds too good to be true, don't listen to it. Do your own homework, check the facts, and then find a place where you can host and be able to do it well, because it's great. It's good money. You can use the property and you can build equity. We've been able to fund 21 houses for our foster kids off of our short-term rental income. That's what
I remember you telling me that. Yeah. I remember we met, and that was this. That's my whole thing, is how do we leverage, right? These models that do good, and that's a big part of it. Oh, that is part of it, and that's part of our thing in Beyond Living, by the way, Julie. One of the things that I love is our homes. We have some homes that we have cleaners earning $2,000 a month just to clean, and they're only doing like 8, 9, 10 cleanings a month, and they're making good income. That's a part-time job. And when you think about that, that's awesome for our Beyond Living, as we're trying to help people create income and get started and grow. So I like having short-term rentals. I wanted to throw something out. Those that know me well know my mind always goes down creative things. I love being disruptive, but I also love being creative. I think there's a giant opportunity right here that stands before us. And I don't know that, it's something I would take on or not, but here's what I do see. This is for you for sure, because you're so heavily in the space of short-term rental. I think there's a massive opportunity to create, and you might already have this, but I'm just sharing with the group. And if I was ever to get in this, I'd want to partner with you and Julie on this, because I think there's an economic side of this that I've actually seen here and can prove economically to here in this thing. I used to build models to predict consumer behavior. I have, this side of economics is much bigger than people know of what I've done. Okay. But there's an opportunity to create a guidance for cities that want to put in regulation. And so while your licensing is one piece of it, it's about bringing in, how do you make it economically sustainable? How do you make it work for the community to create better good? How do we turn this quote unquote nuisance into a success? And I would package an entire consulting thing, and the tax dollars, it'll pay for itself out of the revenue from the licensing that you create. They could pay, the city can pay thousands of dollars, 30 grand, and you come in and you say, here's the done for you kit to make short-term rentals turn into a success for the community, for tourism, to help, because if people don't travel to your city, they're going to go elsewhere. I think about areas that I've had them, Addison, Illinois said no short-term rentals allowed here anymore. Do you realize you're harming your local businesses? That means people are going to stay. They're going to another area and go to that local shop and that local diner and those local places because you didn't want them here. No, let's flip it. How do we make this better for the community? How do we use this revenue to our advantage? And you have a done-for-you kit or process and system, including technology, hotlines, this, that, cards, everything that a city doesn't have to think through it because they don't know this space. Already been thought through, already the best practices. Here's what you do want to do. Here's what you don't want to do, and why. When they say, "Oh, I got this idea. Let's do a distance rule." Here's why you don't want to do distance. Oh, let's make it a shared house only rule. And to your point, this is why you don't want to do that. So you've already brought the best of the best to them. That to me is a massive opportunity. And then that actually, if I had nothing else to do in my life, that's what I would go out and market right now, because I think it really spawns the beautiful nature of capitalism in this country and owning real estate and being able to do something that serves good and we're not out to cheat anybody. People aren't skipping the licensing to not pay the taxes. They're skipping it because they're not going to get approved because of some silly regulation. So anyway, that's my 10 cents for you.
you're describing the cities where we are able to go in and do that. There are cities that are listening, and we give them a boilerplate. Now, we can't, each city is different. You know, we don't want to put regulations in place that have information about what to do with bears in Las Vegas. But we wouldn't need party perhaps stuff in the middle of Wyoming. So what we do is we have a boilerplate with some add-ons. And there are some key components that they have to have in place. They do that, and then they have education. That's where they're having me write courses specifically for that city. Then we are seeing stabilization. We're seeing the community embrace short-term, and it's happening. So right now we're in a lot of disruption, and I'm not against disruption during change to a point, but there is a point where it crosses a line.
Yeah.
It has crossed so far over the line with short-term rentals that it's harming people. And I don't tell people this much, but in the Las Vegas Valley, we had one of the really good hosts finally give up, committed suicide. And I have a hard time talking about it, but they were looking for the American dream. That's where policies and all of this disruptive work have crossed the line to where people say, I just can't do this anymore. I don't believe in the American dream anymore. That's where we can't have it. And you're working with kids that are trying to get out of a bad situation. That was this situation. They lost hope. I don't want to see people lose hope. We need to get this stabilized. So we need to say, knock off the disruption to the major disruptors. We need to say, okay, creative people, get together and let's put these, as you said, let's put these packages together. Let's say, what do we want for our community? And then let's set policy that will inspire the behavior we want.
Yeah. And I love that you're doing that. And I love seeing that. And I don't know if what you're doing includes the economic side of it too, because to me, that was the biggest gap here. When they went up and I saw them speak, Susanna, that was that event, a RIA group that we went to, right? The Asian Real Estate Investor Association. We had the, whatever his name is, the councilman or, whatever, commissioner, talk about why they're doing it. And they're big.
It's been one of the big ones.
Yeah, their big comment though was, well, we're losing $45 million because of this. And I instantly had already done the math and I said, well, I'll show you how to get $62 million. So if you're going to make this about the money, then bring me in and I'll show you how to get more money and make bigger impact in the community. So you got to pick your rationale, right? If you're going to call it money, then let me at least give it. Let's see what the people think. Would you rather have 62 million and spawn tourism and have people have a great place to live and create better security and environments? Or would you rather shut it down and have people giving up their hope and dreams? And there's a lot of people got into short-term rental out of necessity, not because they wanted to get in as investors. They got moved, they got relocated, they lost a family member, they can't afford their house, so I'm in a short-term rental so I don't lose everything. And now they're losing it all, right? But that's because, anyway, so that's my only thing, is that I believe there's an economic side to this that needs to be better understood and explored by a lot of these cities. And I'm not seeing that in these areas. I've got places where they're instituting, like Sedona just launched a license, right? We have one in San Diego and Sedona, right? Although we got our Sedona one, we got San Diego. So we're aware of it. We've got them in Columbus. So we're getting our licenses. That's fine. But I have other areas where there's like, nope, short-term rental not allowed. We don't want that type of people here. Okay, if you thought about the economic impact or what it can do, like there's just no stepping, and the people deserve better from their leaders. That's what my opinion. So
governance, it is, they cannot ban consumer demand. What they can do with governance is control who is doing it and how they're doing it. Now, but they need to understand demand will be filled. So they've got a license.
Or shifted. It's not always filled, it's shifted.
Yeah.
I've actually talked to someone the other day. They actually said, look, I'll be honest. He said, he's coming. He's actually staying in one of ours and he knows about it. And he said, you know what? He said, if I can't get a house, I'm not going to Las Vegas. I'll find somewhere else to go with my family or wherever trip he wants to go. They'll go somewhere else.
Las Vegas is losing conventions over this.
Yeah, exactly. So that's not control. won't always fill it. That's the thing is, I don't believe that's true. People will shift. Look, the proof that governments can drive away dollars. Look at some of the companies that have left the Napa Valley, et cetera, right? Microsoft went up to Seattle. People are moving to Austin, Texas, and all these different places leaving. They say, fine, you're going to make these ridiculous laws. I'll take my jobs and our revenue and our tax dollars and I'll relocate. Stick it to them. And then some are doing it specifically for that purpose. So it's bigger than just the demand will be met elsewhere. No, I don't believe it's true. I think you're going to see an impact. How big, I don't know, but there's going to be an impact. There will be. I think Vegas, the thing about Vegas is pretty unique. Like if you want the strip and the casinos and everything else, it's a global entertainment capital of the world. I get that. So you're not going to shut it down. But you can make impact. You can make impact. That's what I would say.
And you need to be prepared because it will change. They've got to understand it's not working at some point. So get educated, get all your ducks in a row, and you be prepared. There are some people that had taken the class in Henderson, and they were so discouraged because they realized that their property couldn't be licensed, or they call it registration there, because the distance separation. But I said, just get everything ready, get it all digitally prepared and watch. And sure enough, I get emails from them saying, yeah, somebody lost their license. So I swept in and got my license. It can happen. Just be prepared, and then you can jump on the opportunities. And look at what's happening to the world. With each social change, there are some wonderful opportunities.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time, Julie. Let's everyone give a big high five in the chat box for Julie coming in and sharing, over 45 minutes of just I think brilliant points of view and just, such well-versed educational background in this space. And I think that's great for everybody. I mean, it's not just somebody who has some opinions. You clearly are very well immersed in this field, in this space, connected in to these cities and doing big things to help with the change. And I just want everyone to walk away. I think one of the most important pieces of this is, besides obviously realizing that her course can not only help you get certified, but be better as a host, but for the hope side of this. Her comment is exactly where I'm at, is it just takes change in our legislators, the people in office. And that's what we need to push for. And it's not just this policy, it's everything that we disagree with. You see things you don't like the way they're managing, helping homeless people in the community or veterans or foster care, etc. The change has to happen with us as people by voting differently. So my job, and part of what I'm on the mission for, is to start educating people with more facts rather than propaganda, right? Facts, at least understand the argument so people become more educated so that they can make a better decision come voting ballot time, or maybe get people to step out and go vote for the first time because they realize what the impact can be. So I absolutely 100% disagree with everything that's happened here in Las Vegas. I think we're completely disrupting the economy artificially, but it is what it is, and you cannot change that in the moment. You can only get prepared for the future and take action to change it. For me, my action's simple. I'm going to focus on short-term rental in other areas, right? I'm going to try and get licenses where we can, and we're going to but I'm going to try to educate so we can make change in the future. That is the goal. And so, Julie, I thank you a ton for your time. You're always welcome here. And I look forward. Maybe there's some ways that there are some things as I have free up my time and want to get more into this space in other areas that we can collaborate and make bigger impact. Because I think it's a great space to be in. I think we serve people well in the short-term rental. But I agree with you. But it takes people being educated and good operators to make it work. So awesome. If you guys have any other questions, I think I got them. I think we got most of them through the chat. I was so caught up in what she was saying, I missed most of them. But Dawn, I'll take a look at that offline. Flag it if you haven't red flagged that property. I'll take a look at that one. And Michael, you got Michael's questions on where to find those cities. Is there anything that you have in your trainings or consulting, Julie, that people, if they say, hey, I'm really wanting to get into this space more, I'd really love for you to give some guidance on where I should be going. Do you have that as part of your trainings or your classes or consulting or anything? Or how's that? Tell me real quick about that before we close off.
There are a couple of things in class. By learning how to define the regulations. That's one of the best things, the best tools you can have with you. And that's what we teach. And then understanding the best practices. Now, what we're also doing is we're working on a master group. And that my daughter's been bugging me to do that for years now. And so we will be bringing some people together for some more intensive courses. Like 1 week we'll do very intense on reservation sources, or another week very intense on housekeeping procedures and or devices you can use in your facilities. And that I'm excited about. So we're working on that. So watch for it. I'll have it as a banner up on my website when we do. Hopefully you can share it too, because at the end of our class, I always ask, what do you want to know more about? And so we've been tracking that so that we can answer that need as well.
Awesome, great. How many guys would like us to be make sure we keep you communicated on that stuff as it becomes available? Give me a high five in the chat box or raise your hand on the screen. I'm seeing some hands go up. High fives, awesome. So we will keep me posted. I'm sure you and Suzanne, I'm sure are on the regular, or at least you should be. But either way, make sure we know and be happy to let the group know as that becomes available too. But it sounds like some of that stuff you did is actually in your certification class, like where to go and how to understand those license laws. So if you go through that certification class, you kind of get an understanding, a foundation on how to analyze and assess the regulations, so you can figure out what's a good market or maybe a market that's not so, smart to get in, right? Because that's, got it. Fantastic. Very cool. All right. She just put in the chat box, by the way, for those that are watching the replay, it's strcertification.com. Yes, www, but I also, mine work too without the www. You have a good redirect. So strcertification.com, and then the code is GO, all caps, GO with the number 2 day, GO today, like not TO day, but the number 2 day, and that'll get you a discount code May 3rd to 4th in Las Vegas.
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Julie. Thanks everyone for hanging on so long. We have nearly 20 people stayed on for well over an hour, and almost all of them for this full 90 minutes plus. So great stuff, Julie. Thanks, group. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Remember, Thursday evenings now. It's not Wednesdays. It's Thursday evenings. So we'll see you Thursday evening. Bye-bye, guys.
Recording stopped.